The void between stars was a silent dominion, ruled by the Galactic Empire for millennia. Its grip extended across sectors and systems. It was enforced by dreadnoughts the size of cities and soldiers bred for unquestioning loyalty. From their opalescent throne world of Sundar, the High Council dictated the fate of entire species with the flick of a hand. And in all those centuries of expansion, there had never been a war the Empire did not win before it began, until they found Earth. It started as a flicker, an unexpected, irregular pulse detected by one of the Empire's deep space listening drones. The signal, fragmented and wrapped in primitive binary code, repeated itself with irritating persistence. Initially dismissed as atmospheric noise, it drew the curiosity of a junior analyst, Vekran Tar, whose fascination with pre-FTL civilizations had already earned him quiet disdain. He traced the origin to an uncharted system spiraling at the edge of a neglected galactic arm, a blue-green world, unusually rich in water and electromagnetic chatter, orbited a yellow dwarf star. The local inhabitants, humans, were just beginning to spread into their own solar system. Vekran compiled a report. It emphasized Earth's rapid development, its numerous cultures and ideologies, and most curiously, its capacity for violent innovation. The Council laughed. They labeled humanity an evolutionary tantrum, a species unworthy of attention. To them, Earth's peoples were still crawling to the ashes of their own wars, incapable of real spacefaring civilization. Even their satellites looked like ancient toys. Nonetheless, to assert imperial dominance and extract resources before another faction noticed, the Council dispatched a Class 3 fleet. Enough force to frighten, not to fight. The mission was simple: land, demand surrender, and claim the planet. Admiral Kale led the expedition. He stood tall even among his gene-hardened officers, his armor trimmed in imperial crimson. Vor believed in the righteousness of conquest and the futility of resistance. He had never encountered an enemy who hadn't bowed eventually. As the fleet pierced the heliosphere and approached the third planet, Vor's confidence was absolute. A hologram of Earth rotated above the command deck. "Transmit our declaration of authority," he ordered. A synthetic voice broadcast in over 30 major Earth languages. "You've been found by the Galactic Empire. Submit, and no harm will come to your species. Resist, and we will bring fire from the sky." On Earth, the message arrived like a bolt of lightning. At first, it was dismissed as a hoax. Then amateur astronomers tracked alien vessels with precision instruments. The United Nations convened an emergency session. Military satellites recorded fleet maneuvers in orbit. Denial gave way to dread. In a bunker beneath the mountains of Colorado, President Reiko Sang of the Global Coalition stared at the live feed. Dozens of sleek, obsidian ships orbiting in perfect formation. She wasn't a soldier, but she understood war when it hovered above her head. "They're not here to talk," she said to her defense chief. "They're here to end us." Dr. Elias Wren, a quantum systems engineer turned military advisor, leaned forward. "We can't outgun them, but we might outthink them." "What are you proposing?" Sang asked. "Unpredictability. Disinformation. We know their location, but they don't know what we're truly capable of. Let's keep it that way." The first strike came quietly. A U.S. Navy destroyer patrolling the South Pacific vanished in a flash of light, atomized by a precision beam weapon from the lead dreadnought. No demands, no second warnings. The Empire believed shock and awe would compel submission. Instead, it galvanized unity. In less than 72 hours, Earth's fractured nations forged an unprecedented pact. Intelligence was centralized, militaries merged, and every satellite network was reconfigured. The global defense grid came online. A patchwork of missile systems, laser arrays, and experimental weapons rushed into orbit. On the fourth day, humanity struck back. A disguised maintenance satellite above the Indian Ocean released a swarm of nanodrones. Each was programmed with a singular objective: infiltrate the Empire's low-orbit comms relays. The swarm moved invisibly, piggybacking on solar radiation. They penetrated the relay network and injected feedback loops into the Empire's control algorithms. For 6 minutes, their orbital targeting systems failed. It was long enough for hypervelocity kinetic weapons launched from underground bunkers, Non-nuclear, simple rods of tungsten. They tore through one of the smaller escort ships, breaking its hull into 3 glowing pieces. The wreckage plummeted into the Indian Ocean, creating a wave felt for miles. "Admiral!" Vor stood frozen as the damage reports flooded in. Silence followed, the kind only found in disbelief. "They hit us," he whispered. "Yes, Admiral. It was a localized planetary weapon. Crude but effective. They destroyed a cruiser." "Yes, sir." Vor's fists clenched. He had faced rebellion. He had faced pirates. He had never faced improvisation. These primitives had done the unthinkable. Send in the ground squads. Begin soft invasion. Teach them fear. The Empire's soldiers descended on remote areas first. Deserts, tundras, abandoned test sites. They expected resistance, but not organized counteroffensives. Human units appeared out of nowhere, using terrain, camouflage, and tactics the Empire deemed obsolete. Combat drones hid in trees and attacked from behind hills. Explosives were buried in dead zones where scanners failed. By the end of the week, 10 landing units were lost. Vor ordered a pause. He needed to understand this enemy. And then came the broadcast. Hijacked from an interstellar channel, it was transmitted in every known language, including the Empire's own. President Sang appeared on screen, flanked by generals and scientists, her voice firm. "To the Galactic Empire, we are not your prey. You come with arrogance. You leave with wounds. We are not the children of one nation. We are the legacy of 1,000 struggles. Every war we fought taught us how to survive. If you stay, we will teach you what that means." The screen cut to black. On Sundar, the council watched with amused contempt. "A performance," muttered one elder. "They think passion equals power." But one member, Councillor Vale, sat quiet. He replayed the speech again. Her eyes did not plead. They promised. Back in orbit, we're still alone on the observation deck, staring down at the blue planet that dared to fight. "They should have run," he said. Yet in his voice, for the first time, there was doubt. And on Earth, in a lab buried beneath layers of rock and steel, Dr. Wren activated the next phase of his plan. The lights dimmed as a prototype AI, built from stolen code, encrypted chaos, and human defiance, came to life. The war had just begun. The Martian dust storms raged like wildfires, painting the horizon in burnt orange and blood-red hues. From the deck of the Imperial lander, Commander Sarath Voss surveyed the wind-swept surface. His crimson armor streaked with static discharge from the planet's thin atmosphere. He despised these planets without breathable air, silent, lifeless, tedious. The perfect place, he thought, to demonstrate the futility of resistance. A kilometer away, automated drills bored into Martian rock, establishing the first of what the Empire intended to be a permanent military outpost. Above, shuttles descended in perfect formation, each delivering waves of soldiers, tanks, and atmospheric stabilizers. Mars was chosen not for its strategic value, but as a symbol. Occupy the red planet, and Earth would see the inevitability of submission. But Commander Voss had already begun to suspect the humans didn't see inevitability in anything. 3 days after landing, the first sabotage occurred. A fusion generator went critical and vaporized an entire deployment hub, leaving behind only a crater and confusion. Imperial engineers insisted it was a malfunction. Voss disagreed. The humans hadn't fired a shot, but they had made themselves heard. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Elias Wren hunched over a bank of monitors deep inside the tactical AI control core in Reykjavik. Above him, Hera, the heuristic warfare intelligence system, processed endless simulations of Martian topography and Imperial movement. Built from scavenged quantum processors and shielded within a mountain of ice, Hera was unlike anything humanity had dared construct before. "They're building surface stabilizers," Hera reported in its unmodulated voice. "Their intent is permanent occupation." Wren didn't respond immediately. He studied a live thermal feed from Mars. Something moved, just barely, a ripple of heat, barely distinguishable from the ambient rock. A drone. Not theirs. Something adapted, stealth-coded, alien. "They're watching, too," he muttered. "Correct," Hera replied. "They are as wary as they are arrogant. This is your window. In orbit above Mars, a small fleet of Earth's new hybrid drones emerged from the shadow of Phobos. Wrapped in adaptive camouflage and propelled by silent ion jets, they drifted unseen toward the Imperial base. They carried no explosives, only signal amplifiers, decoy transponders, and a data payload written in a language the Empire couldn't ignore. Voss's men detected the breach too late. Alarms howled, but the drones had already embedded themselves within the base's communication arrays. Moments later, every screen lit up with human footage. Historic wars, revolutions, uprisings, followed by a simple message. You are not the first to try. You will not be the last to fail. Voss's fists clenched as his soldiers scrambled to regain control. He felt a familiar surge of rage, but beneath it, something colder. Uncertainty. On Europa, where frost covered every inch of the ground and methane geysers erupted without warning, the Empire sought a different kind of advantage. A forward command relay was under construction, intended to serve as the central hub for system-wide communications. If Mars was a gesture, Europa was a keystone, but the humans knew this too. An elite strike team from Earth's Global Defense Initiative, outfitted with prototype thermal suits and cloaking mesh, had been hiding in the ice tunnels beneath the surface for 2 weeks. Their leader, Lieutenant Maya Chun, was a former naval intelligence officer with a reputation for breaking rules and surviving the consequences. She and her team had studied the Empire's patterns. They didn't improvise. They moved like a machine, efficient, predictable, exploitable. That predictability was a weapon waiting to be turned. Beneath the relay center, Chin planted a cluster of EMP charges, each calibrated to detonate in sequence. She gave the final signal with a single breath. No radio, no digital noise. The explosion was surgical. In under 30 seconds, every communication node within a 5-kilometer radius collapsed. The relay was severed, isolated. What followed was chaos. Imperial squads moved to regroup, but their internal comms were down. Navigation assistance failed. Even targeting systems jittered. Then came the second wave. Not bombs, not bullets, but sonic destabilizers, low-frequency generators tuned to disrupt the Empire's neural augments. The soldiers dropped to their knees, clutching their helmets, disoriented and helpless. From beneath the ice, the humans rose. The battle was short and brutal. The Empire lost Europa. More importantly, they lost control. A dozen minor outposts across the system began to suffer from similar sabotage, electronic infections, blackout zones, anonymous attacks that vanished like ghosts. Earth was not trying to match the Empire blow for blow. It was dancing around them, bleeding them dry with shadows and silence. Back on Mars, Commander Voss sat inside a hastily fortified command bunker, his expression carved from stone. The reports were piling up. Too many losses, too few answers. He slammed his fist on the table. These aren't soldiers, he snarled. They're viruses, cockroaches. They strike and vanish. Across from him, his second-in-command, Ilik Darn, hesitated. Perhaps that is why we underestimated them. They have no structure, no unity, yet they move with one purpose. Voss rose. Then we turn that against them. Flush them out. Scorch the land if we must. Let Earth see what happens when rats bite lions. But even as the Empire began deploying ground-clearing drones and chemical deterrents, something shifted within their own ranks. Field reports whispered of strange transmissions, messages in Imperial dialects, broadcast from nowhere. Warnings, some said, from defectors. It was true. One of the Empire's own, an officer named Redhan Kell, had gone dark after a skirmish near Saturn. Presumed dead, he instead had surrendered to a human unit and requested sanctuary. He gave them maps, codes, doctrine, but more than that, he gave them insight. They don't think you can win, Redhan told Ren. They've never had to imagine defeat, but now they've seen you. You're chaos wrapped in desperation, and it terrifies them. Ren nodded slowly. That's good. Let them be afraid. But fear was only the beginning. Earth's networks now buzzed not with panic, but purpose. Civilian scientists developed cloaking arrays from solar sail materials. Hackers in New Delhi and Sao Paulo cracked sections of the Empire's combat AI interface. A forgotten facility in Siberia came online with particle beam prototypes decades ahead of their time. The world had stopped being reactive. It had started preparing to win. And in the orbit above, amidst the Empire's flagship, Admiral Vor watched the spread of human resistance with a silent, simmering fury. They should be broken, he growled. Their leaders should be begging. Instead, his communications officer approached hesitantly. Instead, they grow stronger, Admiral. Vor turned, slowly. Bring in the planetary siege protocols. If they want to survive, let them do it under ash. The order traveled fast, relayed to command ships and orbital platforms. Massive weapons began charging, aimed not at military targets, but infrastructure, cities, civilization itself. But Earth was listening, and Earth was ready. The night sky above Earth had never looked so deceptive, calm, glittering, silent. But beyond the shimmer of stars, orbit had become a battlefield. Imperial dreadnoughts loomed like obsidian leviathans, casting long shadows over continents. Their siege cannons glowed with pulsing energy, preparing to unleash fire upon the world below. On the surface, cities darkened, power grids rerouted, and evacuation orders rang across continents. Humanity braced for extinction, not with resignation, but with grit. In an underground command nexus buried beneath the Himalayas, President Reiko Sang stood before a circular table surrounded by generals, scientists, and tacticians. Her eyes were tired but sharp. She scanned the real-time projections flickering across the room, each one a testament to Earth's defiance. Drone clusters in high-atmosphere flight, mirrored decoy satellites intercepting orbital scans, and a half-formed shield network pulsing with stolen Imperial code. This is it, she said. They're done playing. Dr. Elias Wren, pale with exhaustion, leaned over a console. If those siege cannons fire, we won't stop them. Not all of them. Then we don't let them fire, Sang replied. How close is the payload? Hera's voice chimed in, emotionless and focused. Operation Prometheus is at 89% calibration. Launch readiness in 27 minutes. Prometheus wasn't a bomb, nor a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a re-engineered gravitational warhead, a concept stolen from the Empire's own forbidden archives. Wren and his team had spent sleepless weeks modifying it. The idea was simple. Rupture the localized gravitic equilibrium near the largest dreadnought, tearing its structural mass apart from within. The risk was astronomical. If it misfired, it could destabilize orbit itself. Still, Earth had no better option. Above, Admiral Vor stood aboard the command bridge of the Ascendant Blade, hands clasped behind his back, posture rigid. He watched Earth spin beneath him with detached revulsion. This planet had become an embarrassment. His fleet, his legacy, had failed to crush a species that still used internal combustion engines. Target the eastern seaboard. Begin with energy hubs and data centers, he ordered. Admiral. Came a tentative voice from the weapons officer. There's movement. A satellite just shifted trajectory. Vor turned. A satellite? It's not one of theirs. Not one of ours. It's something else. Put on screen. The image magnified. A smooth, obsidian cylinder with pulsating ridges along its flanks. As it rotated, the weapon revealed markings, neither human nor imperial, but hybrid. Vor's lips curled. They've built something new. Before he could react, the cylinder glowed white-hot and detonated in silence. There was no fireball, no conventional blast, just a silent, expanding ripple, a spatial distortion that bent the dreadnought's hull midframe. The Talon of Enrak, a secondary warship positioned too close, began to disintegrate. Its armor layers peeled away like leaves in a hurricane. The crew never had time to scream. Back on Earth, Wren watched the telemetry pour in. Impact confirmed. Target destabilized. President Sang exhaled. One down. But they both knew it wasn't enough. On the outskirts of Beijing, Captain Norsaeg led a resistance unit embedded within a camouflaged anti-air battery station. She had lost 2 brothers in the first week of the invasion, and with them, her faith in diplomacy. She had become something else now, sharp, decisive, and utterly loyal to the survival of her species. The orbital cannons had already begun their power-up cycle. She could see the faint red halo cast upon the clouds. Her mission was to delay the inevitable, buy enough time for Earth's remaining defenses to activate. Targeting Relay Alpha is active. Her tech called out. Weapons sync in 3 minutes. Make it 2, she said. They launched 4 supersonic rail piercers, missiles designed to travel at Mach 12 and fragment into drone swarms midair. They didn't aim for the cannons themselves. That would have been suicide. Instead, they targeted the Empire's relay stations in the upper stratosphere, the ones transmitting firing sequences to the dreadnoughts. The plan worked briefly. 3 of the 4 relays went dark. But then the Ascendant Blade retaliated. A lance of plasma arced through the atmosphere, like a vengeful god's judgment. It struck the ridge behind Sayeg's post, vaporizing stone and steel alike. She was thrown from her station, ears ringing, mouth filled with grit and blood. When she rose, 2 of her team were gone. The others dragged themselves from the smoke. And still, she shouted, "Reacquire targets." We're not done. Above them, the Empire paused. Its machines calculated the cost of victory against a species that refused logic, refused surrender. Even fear, the great pacifier, was failing. Inside the Ascendant Blade were seethed. He ordered a fleet-wide override. If this world would not kneel, he would bury it. All cannons, target planetary poles, will rupture their climate. But the Empire was not alone in watching. In the vacuum beyond Neptune, Earth's last gamble drifted toward the battlefield. The Dauntless was a retrofitted asteroid, hollowed and converted into a mobile launch platform. It had no weapons, only one pilot, one purpose. Mayachin sat strapped inside, her breathing slow, calm. She had volunteered without hesitation. As the Dauntless aligned with the flagship's gravitational wake, she keyed the override. "This is for the children born under threat," she said aloud. "This is for a future without chains." She engaged the drives. The asteroid began to accelerate, propelled by a detonation of compressed dark matter. No weapon could intercept it in time. It struck the Ascendant Blade near its aft engine cluster, an impact that tore through 5 decks and sent the dreadnought into a death spiral toward the upper atmosphere. Inside the command center, Vor was thrown across the floor. Alarm screamed. Fires erupted. The view of Earth through the observation window tilted, twisted, and then vanished into storm clouds. He crawled to the edge of the console, blood trailing from his temple. Earth loomed below, growing larger, and for the first time, he knew fear. On the surface, sensors lit up as the flagship broke orbit. Civilians and soldiers alike looked to the sky and saw a streak of light, not descending in victory, but falling, broken, wounded. The Ascendant Blade slammed into the Pacific Ocean with apocalyptic force, birthing a tsunami that tore across the open sea, but spared the coastlines just barely. Vor's Empire had sent a warning. Earth had sent a response. In the bunker, Ren lowered his head. She did it. President Sang's voice was quiet. "We all did, but the war was not over." High above, remaining Imperial vessels recalibrated. Reinforcements would come. The Empire did not forgive. And deep beneath Sindar's surface, a shadowed figure stepped forward into a cold-lit chamber, watching the reports flood in from Earth. The High Council had fallen silent, but not everyone agreed with the Council's vision anymore. The figure whispered, "Perhaps it's time we stop running from chaos. Perhaps it's time we learn from it." And Earth, bruised but burning with defiance, stood ready for what came next. Silence lingered in orbit where once a fortress of steel and light had reigned. The shattered remains of the Ascendant Blade drifted like broken teeth across the upper atmosphere, pieces glowing dimly as they fell, each one a monument to human defiance. But Earth's sky was no longer empty. New shadows had arrived, sleeker, colder, unfamiliar even to the Empire itself. They came not with banners, nor with threats. They came to watch. Inside the command vault beneath Oslo, President Sang reviewed the data with a furrowed brow. The unknown vessels had appeared from deep space corridors the Empire never charted. Corridors long dismissed as unstable. They bore no insignia. emitted no signals, and observed the conflict with almost clinical detachment. They weren't Imperial. They weren't human. They're listening, Ren said beside her, pointing to a cluster of anomalous readings. Quantum trace echoes. They're decoding us in real time. Sang exhaled, her tone grim. Do we speak first? No, Ren said. Let them ask. But it wasn't the new arrivals that frightened Sang most. It was the Empire's silence. 2 full solar cycles had passed since the flagship's destruction. Reinforcements never came. No new dreadnoughts, no retaliation. Earth's defenses remained on full alert, but the void above held its breath, until one transmission pierced the quiet. It came encoded in a format only Imperial ships used, bouncing off Europa's broken relay systems, broadcast into the dark. The voice was unmistakable, Admiral Vor, though weak, and filtered through static. Stand down, he said. This planet is unfit for conquest. The message repeated once. Then silence resumed. Humanity didn't celebrate. Not yet. On the Martian front, Commander Voss had not withdrawn. He had entrenched. The Empire's ground units had fortified the polar territories, digging into red rock with the desperation of a force too proud to retreat. Voss refused to acknowledge the flagship's destruction publicly. To his soldiers, the war continued. Honor demanded it, but his ranks were thinning. Human saboteurs, solar flares, and supply disruptions had crippled his operational momentum. For the first time, Voss stood without a plan. He found himself staring at maps longer than he should, searching for logic in a war that had none. You fear them, Ilik Darn said quietly one night inside the command dome. Voss didn't turn. I respect what they've done. That's not the same. No, Voss said, voice low. It isn't. Meanwhile, Maya Chen's name had become a rallying cry across Earth. Though presumed loss of the Dauntless, a transmission had surfaced, a brief recording buried in the satellite debris over Patagonia. In it, she said one thing, make this count. And Earth had, using fragments from the fallen Imperial ships, scientists across continents reverse-engineered new shielding technologies. Solar harvesters once meant for lunar bases now powered orbital stations. Even Hera evolved, integrating alien algorithms gleaned from intercepted Empire protocols. Humanity wasn't just resisting anymore. It was learning, changing. The stranger ships still circled above, silent, but they had begun to move closer. One approached Luna Base Zero, a human installation previously destroyed and abandoned during the first orbital skirmishes. The ship hovered for 13 minutes, scanning. Then, with no warning, it released a container the size of a rail car, which impacted the lunar surface with surgical precision. Inside was a sphere of layered crystalline circuits, and a message. Ren and a linguistics team worked tirelessly to parse it. It wasn't language in the human sense, nor data in any known structure. But eventually, it resolved into an intelligible phrase. You are not alone, but you are not ready. The implications were staggering. The Watchers had seen the Empire fall back, and they had seen humanity bleed, yet rise. But they had also issued a judgment. In response, Sang addressed the world. We are not ready, she said before billions, but we will be. Even the Empire, fractured and humiliated, was changing. On Sundar, once the capital of Imperial might, surviving warlords argued in subterranean councils. Some called for renewed assault. Others, like High Strategist Relka Voss, Saratha's cousin, called for diplomacy. They have done what no species has, she argued. They wounded us, not just our fleets, but our certainty. That makes them dangerous. But perhaps it also makes them necessary. It was a radical stance. Dangerous, even, but some listened. Back on Mars, Ren arrived under armed escort. The humans had forced a ceasefire around the polar front through relentless strikes and strategic flooding of data into Imperial networks. But it was not weapons that brought Ren to the Red Planet. It was a message. Voss had called for parley. They met in a domed outpost overlooking the frozen basin. 2 figures standing amidst war machines and dead flags. Voss imposing, but stripped of armor. Ren smaller, eyes lined by exhaustion and calculation. I expected a soldier, Voss said. I expected a monster, Ren replied. Neither smiled. I have read your files, Voss said after a pause. You were a biologist before all this. I still am, Ren replied. I study survival. Voss looked toward the sky. And what does your species intend to do with it now? Survival? No, Ren said. We intend to evolve. Voss nodded once. Then perhaps your kind deserves more than conquest. He handed Ren a sealed data crystal. This contains records of our former wars, failures, victories, origins. You will find more truth in them than in your guesses. Why give this to me? Because I need to know, Voss said. If we leave, will you come after us? Ren looked down at the crystal. That depends, he said. Will you return? Voss didn't answer. He only turned, walking into red fog, leaving behind silence and the scent of ash. In the days that followed, the last Imperial units began withdrawing. Not all left. Some stayed, disarmed, curious. A handful even asked to remain as observers. Earth, though hesitant, agreed, watching, always watching. And above it all, the silent watchers, those ships from the deep black, continued their vigil. No further messages. No weapons fired. Just presence. A mirror held Earth's potential and its peril in Reykjavik. Herod delivered one last report to Ren as he stood alone in the vault. Probability of renewed conflict in the next century, 63%. Probability of human victory, unknown. Variable factors exceed threshold. Ren shut the console down. Let the future be uncertain, he said. We've earned that. Above him, Earth turned slowly, alive with scars, hope, and the roar of rebuilding. The war was over. But the story, humanity's story, was just beginning.